Hi everyone, I'm Tushar from SquarePeg Capital. We're an Australian VC that's grown up now to have a presence in Israel, the US and Europe. I'm going to, as any good VC, we sort of bet on a lot of different things, but I'll talk about three today. And by the way, if you don't disagree with something I'm about to say, then something's gone horribly wrong. So three things that we're betting on. One is small to medium enterprises. There's millions of them in this region. And what we want to bet on is things that help these guys transition and own the digital economy of the future. That's things like digital marketplace platforms that connect them to consumers, it's seamless cross-border payment, and so forth. The second thing that we are betting on is that people, particularly in this region more so than others, are going to share more and own less. So we want to back peer-to-peer marketplaces, we want to back sharing economy business models, and we also want to back the underlying infrastructure of logistics that helps goods and services be delivered. The third thing we're sort of backing is data. Data will improve information symmetry exponentially, and it'll provide more context on people than ever before. And we want to back business models that harness data, be that to better price risk, be that to help you decide which house you want to buy, or which bank you want to bank with, or where you want to go to school. There's been some chat earlier today about social and mobile as well. Not a differentiator. We think this is absolute hygiene factor now, particularly in this region. It's like having a website. Last thing, I wouldn't be in VC unless I was a little bit crazy. So I think that in the next 10 years, you'll be watching iFlix on your contact lens, getting pizza from a drone, and won't carry a wallet around or with any cash in it whatsoever.
Next 10 years, okay. We'll jump, let's just go to instead going sequentially. Lim, do you want to take it next now?
Wow.
And share your thoughts on the three things you're betting on next?
I was just waiting for everybody else to say their stuff and just echo everybody.
No, I wanted to jump to you, so I knew you're getting too comfortable there.
Yeah, no, I was very comfortable here. Really, I think what the gentleman just said was some of the things that we feel pretty strongly about as well. We do feel that our fund, Monk Steel Ventures, is focused on Southeast Asia, in particular Series A. So what we look for is a big opportunity that can emerge in the next 5 years or so. And we do think that given Southeast Asia collective size and inefficiencies, there are a lot of opportunity and potential value from driving inefficiencies around logistics, payment, and in leveraging existing assets for new users, for example, healthcare, for example, transportation, for example, education, etc. So there are a lot of inefficiencies in the system that is not suited for the digital age, that with software, with good, smart team, could drive a lot of value and reach a lot more people and be able to generate new use cases as well. And those are the things we look for.
Great. Sean, you can have the mic now since you're itching to go.
Hi, everyone. We're a little bit different from a VC. I think we get categorized as one, but we're from an operating background who are now investing in online classifieds in frontier markets. So we focus very specifically on a very small segment. We do that because we have a lot of expertise in that segment. So what we're betting on, and I don't like that term, but I guess we have to use it, but what we're betting on is that the story of developed markets to emerging markets to frontier markets will play out in that very specific field in which we like, which is online classifieds. We like to invest in local entrepreneurs in frontier markets, and our big bet obviously is internet access from phones, an emerging middle class, and a robust business model that has worked in most markets around the world. So frontier for us is parts of South Asia, East Africa, Central West Africa, and Central America.
Like Sudan, that would be a frontier market?
That's like
What comes after frontier?
So our frontier markets are generally with a GDP of less than $5,000 a month. The types of markets we've invested in so far in Africa, we're in Tanzania, Mozambique, Ghana, Cameroon, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Morocco. We're in Central America, in Costa Rica, Panama, Honduras, and Nicaragua. We're in South Asia in places like Pakistan, shortly Nepal. Myanmar is a big market for us. So think of Southeast Asia for us, we very much class as emerging. So we look one step further than that into what we call pre-emerging or frontier markets.
Interesting. I think none of us would consider that, as the next big thing. But in the context of these frontier markets, it is, right? It's all situational. Okay, great. Erman, you want to go first now?
Yeah. So when I got
go forth. Sorry, not go first.
Yeah. When I got your email, I put some time and thought into trying to figure out what I did really like. And after giving it some thought, I realized that there wasn't one or two things that jumped out at me as having a substantial amount of opportunity, or that jumped out at me in terms of interest. But then I started thinking, for us, what do we really like in the space? And for Catcher Ventures, we look exclusively at ASEAN. And when I started thinking about that, the one thing that jumps out at me is what we've been seeing in the space over the last 3 to 4 years. And one of our key observations for this part of the world is that over the last 3 or 4 years, as the VC space has been developing, we've seen a lot of activity in early stage rounds of funding. We've seen a lot of seed funding. We've seen a lot of Series A, and I think that that's been really great. And I think that out of that activity, what we've started to observe is a lot of really great businesses emerging out of those rounds of funding. What we're starting to observe now is that these businesses that got a seed round of funding or got a really great Series A round of funding are struggling to find that Series B and up. And so they're struggling to find that capital. They're struggling to find partners that really understand those challenges that are associated with Series B and up, with those growth stages of building a business. And for me, in the way that we look at these opportunities, that's really an interesting area. So it's not really a particular vertical that gets me excited. It's really how the whole industry is evolving, and the opportunities that we see are really in these later stages of funding, and all of the businesses that got Series A and now looking for Series B and growing further.
Okay, it's been kind of boring so far. Nothing exciting about the next big thing in digital. So I'm waiting for you to shoot your arrows at them. Okay, this has been severely disappointing so far. Yeah. And I'm leaving Deepak for last because I didn't know that Intel actually had their VC fund since 2001. And in that period, they've actually invested $11 billion US, which just blew my mind. So we'll leave him for last, and hopefully he can blow our minds with what he thinks Intel's going to be betting on next. But Kuan Yin, you want to take the floor now? Thanks.
Yeah, hi, this is Kwan from Gree Ventures. We're a Japanese-based VC. We've been investing in the region in the last couple of years. And apologies, because I'm not going to say anything that's going to blow everyone's mind. I'll let that let Deepak handle that.
No pressure, Deepak, no pressure.
But for us, I think, you could talk about, the way I see it is because we invest in Series A and below. So the way I see it is, look, a lot of these models, business models that is, they're not new to me. We see very similar business models in Japan, for example, or more recently, I just came back from Y Combinator Demo Day in the US, and so you see a lot of the, kind of the very frontier business models there. So when I come back and see Southeast Asia, it's not that it has to be a completely new thing, but I think the key here really is in execution. So for example, if you talk about what we invest in the region, we've invested in pretty standard stuff, which is e-commerce, but we're able to turn that investment in a e-commerce into an exit to LVMH, which is one of the global companies. So so I think really for me, I'm looking more for execution. More above and beyond, hey, what cool business model are you trying to do? Having said that, yes, we've made some, slightly different bets. For example, like in healthcare, a startup in Singapore. We've also made some bets in the financial space, so fintech, but in terms of remittance, not so much in payments. So that's our perspective.
Interesting. It seems to be very hard to bet on the next big thing. So the stage is set for Deepak.
Well, okay, so I think getting the oldest guy to go last in a politically correct world is actually age discrimination. But anyway, we'll set that aside. But in a conference like this, as I look across the audience, I mean, I'm twice the median age of the average attendee here. And that has a professional and a personal benefit. The professional benefit is I know where the next incremental dollar in disposable income is going to be spent, because all of you are standing up here and saying various things about what you're building and what you're spending on. So that's good. to see from a professional perspective. From a personal perspective, it helps me understand my son a lot better because he is the median age, and I know where his money is going. And of course, it helps me understand Arman every once in a while when he talks to me. So, but all that being said, I will take a different tack on.
Deepak, sorry, you want to hold on? Kiss the mic, please, in a way. Yeah, thanks.
So all that being said, one thing I will say is everything we're looking at is entirely different from what you've just heard. Because we are a technology player, and we're trying to build the plumbing and the tap from which all this great content, which is water and other things, might flow from. And so I look at digital media in 3 buckets. One is enabling technologies, things that the devices need to be capable of doing and displaying, so that all this content that everybody else is investing in can be presented with the right user experience. The second is new applications for digital media, places where you didn't expect digital media to be present. And I call applications not software applications like stuff that runs on your mobile, but a connected car application or a drone application, where, for example, drones are now being used to survey large tracts of land where forest fires may start. And they're measuring the heat of the land in those places, or the humidity, to see if there is a chance of a forest fire starting somewhere, so that the appropriate public safety people can be mobilized. All this is, in fact, a digital media application, because they're collecting information, sending it to a server somewhere, and it's being analyzed to determine sometimes visual, not sometimes, but always a visual map of where things should be addressed. The third area is the traditional software and services area, content and services, and I think everybody else has talked a bit about that. In the content and services area, I mean, there's reasons. We have made investments in the past, but what we've realized is that is not our knitting. It's better to leave it to people who understand content and the online services world. Except in emerging markets, we've made some investments in content and online services, mostly because it drives demand for devices. And when you drive demand for devices, then Intel benefits because we sell the chips that go into those devices. So I'm not sure that anything of that is going to blow you away, but the reality is we look at digital media in a very different light than all the content that's being pumped to you on your mobile phone or this or that. We're looking at the enabling technologies that you need to have in order to enable that user experience that you're looking for.
What we'll now do is open up the floor to questions, and we've all actually also joined K-Fit, and we've taken yoga classes, so we know how to keep still for a minute. The silence is going to be deafening if there are no questions from the floor. So who's got questions to shoot at them? All right, one. It has to be the white guy, God damn it.
Hey, come on. Are you guys seeing increased sizes in A rounds in the region? Like average A round sizes in the US are 11 million now. In terms of the average A round size in Southeast Asia, what are you seeing, and is it getting bigger or smaller?
I think the size of the round has gone up slightly, but not as much as valuations have. So valuations, I think, compared to when we first started investing in the region almost 3 years ago, there was at least a 2x, if not sometimes 3x increase. And this is just across, all sorts of, segments and geographies. But that's generally what I've seen.
I also think that that depends on which geography you're looking at within the region. Certain markets get a little bit more attention than other markets, so you definitely see valuations in places like Indonesia going up. I think increasingly so in Philippines, definitely in Singapore. Other markets maybe don't get quite as much attention.
I do think that Series B is going to be much, much bigger than what it usually is, particularly because in Southeast Asia, when you look at Series B, it's about regional expansion. And when at that sort of a plan, it requires a lot more capital, a lot more firepower. I think you're going to begin to see a lot more larger Series Bs as well.
Josh?
So I've got a slightly different take on this. I think the one thing that I am definitely seeing is creativity in the naming of the round, ranging from seed, pre-seed, post-seed, bridge to A, pre-A, A+, B+. And the check sizes can range in a B round to what you might expect in a growth round, in an A round, what you might consider seed. So for us, we've actually just started ignoring the is it an A or a B or a C? Like we're just looking at how much are you raising, what are you going to do with it, what do you need it for, what are the fundamentals of your business, do we like you, do we like your space?
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, you talk about creativity. Just this morning, we ran a story on Cash That Bus, which raised $1.5 million US, but it was a pre-A round. And seriously, we've been covering this ecosystem for a while. It's the first time I've seen that. I'm like, what do you mean by a pre-Series A? Is it a failure? You haven't raised Series A and your existing investor has to fork up, that money? Because Jungle Ventures is still the lead investor in this next round. But then I saw they had 500 startups. And Kylie, if not anything but just one of the sharpest cookies around in this ecosystem, the founder of the company said that, look, they're on the verge of raising a much bigger round, but they needed this money to execute and to hire talent. And I was thinking, okay, so I don't understand it, but that's what they said. So this creativity in naming is definitely coming true now. But anyone else to follow up on this? Sean, or else we'll get the next question.
Well, I was just going to mention that the naming of the rounds is interesting. It's almost become a blur about I need more money. So we take a pretty pragmatic view on that. One of the other observations about the valuations, one of the attractions for us of frontier markets is the fact that in a lot of the tried business models, valuations in emerging markets are now extremely high. And they're based off the developed markets where the point of comparison is a big successful business, and emerging markets have really galloped away, I would say, in the past 2 to 3 years. But there's still a heck of a lot of opportunity out there in these next stage markets where the rounds are a lot smaller, but a lot of blurred lines bearing what they're called.
All right, anyone else with any questions? Okay, there's a question here. Can somebody get the young man a mic? Almost everybody's going to be a young man.
Hi, I'm Stephen Koo from the Philippines. So you mentioned a while ago a lot of very serious genres of things you're betting on. But how about industries? Because I'm a neophyte in the tech industry. So how about non-conservative industries like nightlife and dating? Is this something
brilliant. Love dating.
All right, well done.
No, that was it.
Fine, great. Next, who else wants to answer that?
No, I actually honestly think that the comment that I made about data applies as much to dating as to other verticals. I think it is quite possible that you'll be matched up with your life partner in the next 7 or 8 years by an algorithm. And they'll be much better able to choose for you who you'll be compatible with than you might be based on their looks on Tinder or on some other random sets of data you get your hands on yourself.
Okay, I'll find you later. We'll match.
There you go, good pitch. Anyone else? Did I see a question come up on this side? Okay, over there. Could you get the young man a mic, please? So we've got, okay, we're good. Still got 10 minutes to go. So keep your questions coming, yeah?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is William. I'm from Skystar Capital, Indonesia. I have a question. While the VCs are betting on the next big thing in digital space, would you guys think that the current crisis in the financial market would have any effect in the fundraising for startups, the early tech ventures that will potentially hamper the next big thing to occur? Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, I think the short answer is no, because I think look, you're looking at second or third order effects, right? And if you let those kind of macro events impact how you think as a startup, then I think you got the wrong mindset. So what I always suggest to my portfolio companies and other startups that I talk to is, look, just heads down and just focus on building up your KPIs. I mean, we've been talking about valuations have increased in the last couple of years, and the way, and also Kuo-Yi has mentioned about the gap kind of challenge in funding the right Series B capital. I think the key really to overcome all of that is just build your KPIs, make sure it grows. Rather than rely a lot on the marketing and hype, just focus and build the numbers up. Because there is definitely, if you look at a lot of the Series A companies being funded right now, I think the general comment is that, hey, they're getting funded at almost at a future KPI. They expect that the company will hit certain levels of KPI and not based on what they've done to date. So I think that's really what the startup should be worrying about.
Is that, Deepak, you want to take this also? Because you've probably seen more ups and downs, especially in economic cycles. Yeah. Share your insight.
Well, I mean, there is a cliched term that I've heard many, many times, which is that some of the best companies actually get started during recessions. And it takes a couple of things. One is if you have a great idea, there is no need to wait for the market to turn up to start executing it. Secondly, it takes the spotlight off of the company. If you are in a spotlight all the time, then your behavior is modified accordingly. And all you have to live with is possibly the possibility that an investor might come in and bid a little bit less for your company than you think it is worth. But frankly, until the company is built, it is not worth anything. As I always tell people, when two guys and a dog show up for a pitch to me, I just have to figure out what the dog is worth. And because nothing has happened yet, it's a PowerPoint presentation. So you really have to look at it from that perspective. If you have a great idea, start working on it now. And if you need extra capital to make it happen, go find the source that gives you the capital at a price that you can afford to take it at. That's it.
That's good. I mean, just to quickly share, there's a lady in this room who actually wants to leave and do her own thing. She's with a tier 1 global tech company, and she spoke to me and I said, you should go. And same thing. I was a business journalist writing about technology for 15 years before I left. And the thing that I've noticed also is that the entrepreneurs, this is all economy entrepreneurs, they all say the same thing. The best time to launch is actually when everyone is afraid to launch. Just get out there and do it if you have a conviction. But she was advised by a leading entrepreneur in the tech space to wait because economy situation is uncertain. And I think that's not right. This is the best time to go. Where angels fear to tread or whatever, there's some saying out there, right, which you should know. You should go out and do this, I think. So that's good. Was there another question? I think I saw a hand come up on that. Oh, yeah, there you go. The far right, far left for you. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Adrian from Arden Capital. I have a question about geography. So traditionally, we only invest if a company at minimum has regional ambition. Has it matured enough where you can now invest in a company that is just in Malaysia or just in Indonesia?
Okay, interesting question, thanks. So just that's your hyper-local then, single market even. So anyone want to take it? Has anyone made investments in that space, a company just in one market?
Well, I mean, for us, it's a preference. The investments we make are really about a domestic market, the size of it. And we probably shy away from people who want to be in too many markets too quick and have what we call just collecting flags. So I get the scalability issue, but for us it's about single markets, and we always get a bit nervous about people who have aspirations to go into 8 countries in 2 years and forget about the one they started in.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think, from what I've seen in the businesses that we've been involved in, a huge amount of value gets generated on a regional level, but that regional proposition really revolves around regional leadership. And so to claim regional leadership, what you have to have is single country leadership. So if you're foregoing that single country leadership position because you're going regional too fast, then I think you can degrade a lot of the potential value. But if you can own each individual country on its own, that could potentially be more valuable than just going regional too quickly.
I have because I invested in Vietnam and in a company that essentially is a Vietnamese company. I sort of break this out into 2 buckets again. If it's an e-commerce business, then clearly you want to see success in the home market, and then you want to see regional expansion or global expansion or whatever that turns out to be. I think if it's a content business, it tends to be local. I've come across hundreds of companies in the 7 years I've been looking in this region of companies, content or otherwise, whose sole barrier to entry is that they have local language. And the problem with that is that cuts both ways. If the only thing that keeps you in business in Thailand is that you have Thai version of the software, then you can't get out of Thailand. And so it's a very small market. So I think you have to really look at the specific company, what market is going after. And if the market is large enough for whatever they have in the local market, in one country or maybe 2 countries, it's worth investing in that. Otherwise, I tend to walk away.
Anyone else there? Okay, next question. All right, there's one. Can you get the mic here?
Hi, gentlemen. My name is David. I'm one of those old economy entrepreneurs. I have a business that distributes and brings in beauty products from around the world. I just want to know what's your view on the e-commerce front. It's been established for some time now, but for small, medium players like us who wants to reach the regional markets, I'd like to know what your thoughts on e-commerce in retail, especially if there's an angle on beauty as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe let me go first because we just sold Luxola to LVMH, and they're based in Singapore and they operate in the region. So the short answer, we love beauty and female consumption. So there you go.
But it became a target acquisition, right? Not with aspirations to be, to be the, main player, right, in the space.
Right. Well, actually, within Southeast Asia, I mean, they are the main player, and I think that's one of the reasons why someone like an LVMH decided to come in and buy it, because they want that regional footprint. So I do, again, and even given that it was acquired by LVMH, there's still a lot of room for other beauty-related business models to thrive in the region. So so it's a great market.
You asked the question from an e-commerce perspective, but this is a digital media conference, so let me address it from the technology point of view as well. When people buy things that they intend to wear, they like to try them out. And one of the problems we've had with online businesses is people's inability to try things out. So one of the areas we work on is this area called perceptual computing, where we can actually simulate what you would look like if you wore a certain fashion accessory, whether it's a lipstick or a piece of garment or whatever, clothing or whatever it is. Creating that virtual view in that garment allows you to make that decision to buy online. So this is actually a big market for a company like Intel to address. We have a group called Perceptual Computing that works just on these virtual experiences.
Anything else? Anyone else on that?
I think for e-commerce in general, regardless of the category, we look at the cost of acquiring the customer, the cost it costs to serve the customer, and the margin. And this is really a general principle, right? This is 101. This is first principle, regardless of whether you're doing online or offline. And I think in the markets, looking at, especially on digital, online sort of sale, the repeat purchase has always been one of the key differentiator for us. How often does the person come back and buy it from you? I think certain categories lend it a lot better than others. And perhaps from Quant's experience in Luxilla, beauty for women tends to be a pretty high repeat purchase category.
Anyone else? We've got time for one last question. We're down to the last 2 minutes. Okay, this question right in.
Hi, gentlemen. I have a question on classifieds. What do you think the future of classifieds looks like from a technology perspective or from a monetization perspective? How do they become successful? Are they still relevant? We've got some really big classifieds players here in Southeast Asia, but also a lot of upcoming new players. So just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we're obviously into classifieds. Our view of classifieds is that what you see today is just a stepping stone on the journey. We're very bullish about the fact that in auto, in property, in general classifieds, that it becomes transaction-based and you really end up with a marketplace. So when we look at frontier markets and we look at classifieds businesses, what we actually see is a transaction platform. So we're already seeing in Pakistan, for example, where property classifieds have made the transition through to people buying their house on the website. So our partners in Pakistan now charge advertising for classifieds, but every month they're making more and more money charging commission on the sale of new properties over their website. We're seeing it in auto, and that's obviously already happened in general classifieds. But in our mind, the classified story is about a third of the way through. They're advertising businesses, which become leads businesses, which ultimately become marketplaces and platforms to perform transactions. So if you think about the e-commerce question, I was sitting here thinking, once you actually try a pair of jeans on in a shop, I don't buy those jeans in the shop anymore. I just go online and do it. Shoes, I can buy online. And I think with classifieds, there's always been this question about the size of the transaction, because it's not a beauty product or a pair of jeans, it's a house or a car. But we're now seeing, cars purchased online in many markets. We're seeing properties now purchased online. So I think those classifieds businesses become trusted brands in frontier and emerging markets that are platforms for tapping into the economics of the transaction and not just advertising dollars. So I think it's early days for the classified story.
I think there's an entrepreneur here from Pakistan also. Is it Razif? Okay, he's just behind you. You can go over and say hi to him and find out more about the dynamics of the classified market from him. Great, I know, Patrick's very happy because Patrick invested in him. So with that, the time is up. I really need to apologize to all of you because you didn't get anything about the next big thing in digital here. So blame the panel, and make them buy you the drinks tonight, okay? You guys are not buying. So these guys are buying. So thank you very much for your time. Guys, give them a round of applause.